Good morning. Thank you for joining me. I am talking about diffusing sibling rivalry without getting stuck in the middle. Because let's face it, that is exhausting. And it feels like it's never ending. It doesn't matter what you try or what you say, your siblings are constantly going at each other. Not your siblings, sorry, your children. And it's heartbreaking. It is absolutely heartbreaking to watch people that you love go at each other in a way that's just mean. It's mean, maybe mean-spirited. It lacks compassion. And here you are thinking, how? How can you treat each other this way? This isn't how I treat you. This isn't what we do in our house. Why do you keep doing this? And so you do more of what feels like the only option, which is step in. Step in to referee, step in to break them up, step in to somehow stop this level of conflict that, again, is heartbreaking for you to watch. And you know, as a parent, is just kind of unnecessary, but also creating a lot of relational damage to two people that you'd sort of prefer that they have a relationship at some stage in their life, right? Okay, we are going to talk about this today. Get a pen and paper. I want you to get as much out of this as possible. Diffusing sibling rivalry is actually can be trickier than you think. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks to everybody who's hopping in. My name is Ali Payne. I'm a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach, and I have been supporting family relationships for 14 years, particularly helping parents to end some of this painful disconnection and the emotional blow-ups and the stressful sighs and eye rolls, all of that kind of thing, to better understand their teens and create the trust and respect that is possible. Today, I want to talk to you again about diffusing sibling rivalry because wowza, it's heartbreaking as a parent. How do I tell my mom that, hey, hi? Okay, so here's what I want to share with you. Even though your instinct as a parent is to, of course, jump in and referee, like break up the fight. That makes sense, right? In a lot of ways, that makes sense. That worked when your children were younger. That worked when they were children, say up to around 8 years old, even not even up to then, maybe younger. Like if it was about a toy. So, they both wanted this toy, then you would step in, break up the fight, and make some agreement that was workable. What worked about that then is that your children's brain was not developed enough to have a complex thought processes or decision making around conflict resolution. Okay? So without that, it required you to come in and step in and say, okay, who had it first, or, whatever that looked like, because their brains couldn't manage that then. It doesn't work when you have tweens and teens. And it's exactly that same reason, because now through puberty, their brains are developing individual and more complex thought processes and decision making. So when you step in as the referee, even though that seems to make the most sense, it's actually the thing that's going to have them turn on you. Like, give me a heck yeah if that is what you experience. You try and step in because you love these two individuals. They're going at each other. You step in and now all of a sudden you're the bad person? What now? How does that make sense? And you'll hear things like, oh, Mom, like, why do you bother? You never say the right thing. Mom, I don't know why you're trying to help because you're not helpful at all. Mom, stop trying to do this. You don't even know what we're talking about. Stuff like that, right? Oh my goodness. So let me walk you through this. The reason that you stepping in doesn't work as well when you have a teen or a tween is because you are not supporting them to learn the conflict resolution skills that are necessary. So as much as this is heartbreaking to hear your children fight, like really painful, you stepping in is only kind of thwarting their learning opportunity for conflict resolution, okay? So that's number one. I know your first instinct is to step in and referee, and I'm going to tell you every time that won't work. And you've probably experienced that. And then it's just frustrating. So we just keep doing more of the same, right? Sorry, my screen keeps turning off and I keep forgetting to set the screen timer. Anyway, all right. Here's what you can do, and this is what is more workable. Hi, thanks for joining me. What is more workable is when you have your teenagers, your tweens arguing, that you go into them, but you don't do it with the purpose of stopping or breaking it up, okay? We're trying to teach them conflict resolution skills. So this is actually, I want to go back because this is another reason why refereeing doesn't work, is it's natural to go in to the fight and try and be like the police officer, like the private investigator, right? And all of a sudden you make up, because you love them, you make up that it's your job to find out, like imagine you have your little pen and paper there. All right, tell me your side of the story and what happened. And what is your side? And tell me exactly what happened. And you'd get all the data and you get all the facts. And then somehow it's on you to decide whose perception is right, whose is wrong, what actually happened. I'm going to just say right now, just don't. That's a lose, lose, lose. Like it will never work, because there is 8 sides to every story, literally 8 sides to every story. So if you are going in, if you're more analytical minded and you really value data and information, you are more likely to step in and want to find out who is right and who is wrong. Now, I don't know about you, but how much do you love feeling wrong or being told that you're wrong? Being told that your perspective or perhaps your experience of something is wrong. Yeah, I don't like it either. In fact, if I'm told my experience or perspective is wrong, I will often get defensive. And so now you had an argument that is now turning toxic, because defensiveness is a toxic communication style. So now we're already spiraling out of control here. It will never work for you to be the referee, but more importantly, it will not work for you in sibling rivalry when your children are fighting to be the detective to find out who was right and who was wrong and deliver your verdict, you know, of who is right and who is wrong. Because boy, oh boy, the child who you say is wrong is gonna be so pissed at you and defensive. So now it's toxic, okay? And they haven't learned conflict resolution skills. So if your bent is, if you're the emotional reactor and you want to go in and shut down the painful emotion because it's hard to be with as a parent, that won't work. And if you're the data-driven person who doesn't get emotionally worked up, but you want to find the information and then deliver your verdict about right, wrong, don't do it. Just don't do it, okay? Here is what I would say to that around the sibling rivalry, okay? Having boundaries around how you and your teens and tweens treat each other, which I believe in basic boundaries around respect and dignity, okay? So we can be angry at each other. Please don't thwart anger, okay? Anger is human. Yes, anger is a covering emotion. It almost always covers, hi, hey, thanks for coming. Anger covers sadness, fear, lots of other things. But thwarting anger in itself is very invalidating. It's a very invalidating thing. So even if you're going to your siblings who are arguing and you're not trying to referee or be the information gatherer and deliver your verdict, But you are saying, whoa, you guys, you don't need to be so, like, it's not okay to, okay. Just be careful of that, because being angry is okay. I guarantee you, I get angry at my teenagers and they get angry with me, and that's okay. It's what we do with it. That's where we have a boundary. So they can be angry. We have always said to our children, you can be angry with us, you can disagree with us, and you can take ownership of that. So that's one of our boundaries, is taking ownership as opposed to blame. Blame is a toxic communication style where I'm taking my anger out on someone else in a very derogatory way, as opposed to taking ownership of my feelings, which sounds more like, I feel really angry right now. I'm really upset that I heard you do this, or I saw you do this, or whatever. It comes from an ownership place. Great. Okay. That might be really hard to hear, but it's okay to be angry. Okay. So let's allow emotions, and let's create a container that creates safety for those emotions, so that it's okay to be angry with each other. It's okay to have hurt feelings. It's okay not to agree. I don't know about you, but it'd be kind of boring if we all agreed. Like, that's pretty vanilla, right? We're all different people. We all have different perspectives. And so we're not always going to agree. That's okay. The safe container is what it looks and sounds like. So again, we don't use blaming, and we don't go to defensiveness. If blame or defensiveness shows up, which also are normal, although they're toxic, that's an instant flag to go, okay, I think we just need to call a 5-minute break. And I'm hearing blaming, I'm hearing some defensiveness. This is normal. You don't say that's not okay. That's normal. However, this generally isn't going to go to a good place. So let's just take a step for 5 minutes, and then let's come back and we'll reconvene. You're not in that moment making anyone's feelings wrong, but you are addressing the fact that some toxic things are showing up, and that you're calling a spade, and that, look, this is just one snowflake or 2 snowflakes that are going down an avalanche here, and it's going to make it worse. You're not saying who's right and wrong. You are just calling a pause. You're just calling a 5-minute break, okay? So the container also looks like, we don't name call. We do not use name calling. So this is about, again, creating that container of basic respect and dignity, that it is totally okay for everyone to have feelings. We encourage ownership of feelings rather than projecting them on other people. And it is okay to take a 5-minute break. That in itself is a safe container. If you feel so angry with me or your siblings, right, or so angry at each other, it's okay to feel that way, and go in your rooms, or go for a walk, go outside, go turn on some music, crank a tune, dance it out, whatever, in your room. It's okay. In our house, it was okay to punch pillows in your bedroom, punch pillows on the couch. You were mad, you could, because our fists were not, when they were little, right? Our little boys, fists were only for helping. Helping and hugging is what we said. For helping, creating, and hugging. Hands were for that, but they were not for hitting. But you could hit pillows if you were angry. So that was how we got around that. So whatever a timeout looks like for your siblings, I keep calling them, for your children, supporting a timeout is really critical, okay? To validate emotion, honor that it can be hard and heavy, and keep the safe container. So you would need to decide what respect and dignity look like for you in your house. And that's something that I actually encourage parents and families to come up with. Usually at the dinner table, it's not one conversation. It's usually 4 or 5 conversations. But to actually call it out, like, okay, you guys, look, we're going to be angry at each other sometimes. Hello, we're not all going to get along here. That's normal. So how do we want to be when things feel hard? That's a coaching question. How do we want to be when we don't agree? How do we want to be with each other? And just create an agreement, write it down, create a scribble, and then it goes up on the fridge. This is how we agree to be when we're angry or when we're upset with each other. We agree to be honest about our feelings. We agree to take ownership of our feelings, and we agree to take a timeout if we need so that we don't cross that line. Those are just 3 suggestions. They're not ones you have to have on yours, but creating this safe container is really critical. All right, so let's move past that. The next thing is, where you are not the referee, is to encourage your children to have emotional expression that is constructive. So using I language, I feel this way about this. I feel X about Y. Okay, write that down. Put it in your notes. I feel X about Y. That is the greatest thing you can support your children to build emotional expression and emotional, what am I trying to say? Emotional expression and emotional vocabulary. So for self-advocacy. Okay, sorry, that's where I was going. To help your children self-advocate when they're in a position where they don't agree with something, which as adults, they're going to be in positions that they don't agree with something. And there's probably a lot of situations you would want them to speak up and you want them to say something. So this is why I'm saying conflict as itself, like as a whole, is not a bad thing. Conflict is necessary for growth. Conflict is necessary for us to be growing and learning about relationships and about ourselves. So let's be careful. If you're conflict adverse, this is going to be a tough one for you. You can totally do it. I believe in you. But this might be challenging for you. That conflict in itself is okay. It's how we play it. All right? So there's a chart that you can, it's actually in one of my story highlights on here. And I don't remember if it's relationship or personal development. It's a free chart. You can Google it, download it. It's a PDF. Dr. Gloria Wilcox, The Feeling Wheel. The Feeling Wheel, Dr. Gloria Wilcox. She developed it. It's this feeling wheel that is helpful for teens and particularly tweens, actually, young, early adolescents, to help as their brain is developing very complex emotions and thought processes to put words to that. It's just like giving a 2-year-old words when they're throwing a temper tantrum. They're throwing a temper tantrum usually because they don't know how to express what they want to say. And for teens and tweens, it's not that much different. Their brain is actually growing and developing at that fast of a rate. So building self-advocacy for them to say, I feel X about Y in the conflict is really helpful. It's not the resolution in itself, but it is really helpful. So we get to the point where they can both say what it is that they're feeling. And then this is a relationship conflict tool, okay, that I use. Would you believe, first of all, that 90% of conflict is perceived? 90% of conflict is perceived. Yeah. And that's because our brains are so different in the way we perceive things. I can think that you did or said something and then I perceived it as very personal cut and toward me and now I'm really angry. But if I check that out with you, you'd be like, oh, that's not what I meant at all. I'm really sorry that you're upset. That's not what I meant. This is what I meant. That's why conflict escalates so quickly when really it's not always the truth. So when your teenager is equipped to say, I feel X about Y, then the other sibling can say, I feel X about Y, or they can say, wait a minute, that's not what I saw, or that's not, now you don't want to get into an argument about who saw who, what, because the reality is we all have different perceptions about stuff. And equipping your children, to your teens and tweens, to understand that we all have very different perspectives and lenses on life just based on the vast differences in our processing in our brain. That's really important for them to understand, that we're not always going to agree. Okay, we're not always going to agree. The other thing to get them to do is name the issue. So not only is 90% of conflict perceived, when people are actually in conflict, did you know that most of the time they don't even know what the issue is? Like they actually don't even know what they're mad about anymore? That's cray-cray. Are you kidding? Yeah, so if you're gonna go in not as the referee, if you're going to go in, okay, you can support them. If they seem stuck, you can support them to say, okay, girls or boys or girl and boy, whatever it is, children that I want to love so much, but right now I don't, you know, those. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. You get them to name the issue. I'm just using this as an example. You get them to name the issue. Like, what is it that we're arguing about? So you're not saying the argument, you're not validating or invalidating the argument. You're not saying who feels right, who doesn't feel right. You're not doing any of that. You're just like, okay, what's the issue here? Because when they can agree on the issue, guess what they just did? They found one point of agreement. And when you can find one point of agreement in the midst of a conflict, that's powerful. One point of agreement. What is the issue? When they agree on the issue, it's like, then you can say, wow, you guys, awesome job. Okay. All right. We're on the same page with the issue. Then you can go back to things like, I feel X about Y. But really, this is about encouraging them, your teens and tweens, to develop the conflict resolution skills. Number one, to self-advocate, to say what it is that's bothering them and how they feel about it. And number two, to understand that there is wildly different perspectives on the same situation and that we may never agree on that. Like, that's normal. Well, like, that's human. Number three, to build in the sense of security and self enough through self-advocacy that they are willing to pause and listen to their sibling side, even if they don't agree. Listening does not mean that you agree. It doesn't. I can quietly sit and listen to you talk all you want and I'll be like, they are no, don't agree with any of that. But I can still give you the respect of listening. So if you give me the respect of listening to my side, then I can give you the respect of listening to your side. And that can go back into that agreement around creating that safe container, right? What does it look like when we disagree? How do we want to be with each other in a disagreement? We want to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to feel heard, and we want to make sure that when it's not our turn to speak, that we are listening to each other. Maybe you put that in there. I don't know. This isn't being like sorry, I got a hair in my eye. It's driving me crazy. This isn't super prescriptive, and I don't recommend that you come up with the agreement and then like overlay it on them, because I guarantee you'll get a giant one of these or one of these, but it won't be all four fingers. This is about them coming up with this and empowering them to create an agreement of how they want to be when things feel hard, so that this empowers you. Want to know why? Because if they come up with an agreement about how they want to be in an argument, if they're arguing and you go to them, you're not refereeing at all. All you're doing is saying, hey, this is what you guys agreed on. How can you don't say you're not doing it and you're just going to get a whole bunch of defensiveness and wrong, because now you're being a referee again. You just be like, okay, how can I help you guys to get in alignment with what you agreed with, what you created, right? That's all you're saying. How can I help? Okay. So we've gotten to them a version of self-advocacy. We've discussed about a safe container, how they're moving forward with that is that they are maybe checking out some of their data with each other. Like, is there actually a conflict? And you've gotten them to agree on what is the actual issue? Like, what's the issue? So once they've done that, then you can say, okay, how do you feel about the issue right now? Or ask them. Just be careful of how much role you're actually playing in this. I want you to equip them to do this, okay? Not for you to step in, or else you're back into the referee seat and you will lose every time. It won't go well. How do you feel about the issue right now? Now, did you hear what I said? How do you feel about the issue right now, right? Here's what this does. I know what you're thinking. You're smart people. This isn't about saying, how do you feel about your sibling right now? Because, hi, That is so wildly conflictual. You want an avalanche? Oh, honey, that'll give you an avalanche, a tornado, and a whole tsunami all at once. Of course, they're pissed at each other. So that will just escalate the situation. So naming the issue, okay, is really critical. But number two, when you ask them, how do you feel about the issue now? It is depersonalizing it a little bit, which is a de-escalation tool in conflict. How do you feel about it right now? Now, those words can be colorful. They can be like, I am so pissed, I'm so frustrated, I'm so XYZ, things I'm not going to say right now, about the issue, okay? Then you can ask them, how do you want to feel about this issue? And they both, how do you feel about it right now might take a long, and you can keep saying, how do you feel about the issue? Not how do you feel about each other? How do you feel about the issue? Then you say, how do you want to feel about it? How do you want this to feel? Because then you can move to action, which is, what is one thing that you are willing to do to take a step to how you want it to feel? And they both, or three, or however many, are required to declare an action step toward how they want to feel about it. Because you see, it equals the playing field then. Because you'll notice that nowhere in there did we get into the private investigator of who's right and who's wrong and whose data was what actually happened and who said, don't. Forget it. You're going to lose that way anyway. This is about them. They are now all of a sudden taking ownership of how they want to feel about something, and they're taking an action step toward that. Okay? So that puts them in the driver's seat of creating the solution. You didn't come up with it. You didn't tell them what to do. And so they have greater buy-in instantly. They have greater buy-in. Okay? So that's one tool to use. Another one is, because girlfriend loves her lip gloss, I use this as my prop. The other one is called the talking stick. And I hope I'm not incorrectly saying this. I believe this is a Native American tool for conflict resolution that is hugely powerful. That if your siblings, why do I keep saying that? If your children are in an argument and it's super heated, like super, super heated, and what happens in the brain, by the way, during conflict is this upper part of the brain, the intellectual, like put together thought process part, it is vacated. So this is the Daniel Siegel hand model, okay, of the brain. This is the part of the brain that does the complex thought processes, decision making, develops coping strategies. It can work through problem solving, okay? In high levels of conflict, it actually flips its lid. Now, this is the emotional center of the brain, the amygdala, okay? And so this problem-solving part of the brain, it's checked out. It's not available anymore. It's just checked out. And now the emotion center of the brain is running the show, and it's raw, and it's reactive, and it's all sorts of things, okay? So that's why sometimes in conflict, taking a break is the best, most respectful thing you can do for your children, is get them to just take a break. But let them decide what that looks like, okay? Don't treat them like they're 5. Don't send them to their rooms for a timeout. Don't. Let them decide what that works. For some teens, that's go for a walk. For some teens, it's blare their favorite song. For some teens, it's put on meditation music. For some teens, let them decide whatever that is to get their intellectual brain back down and present in the conversation, okay? So the talking stick is really powerful when it comes to teaching them the skill of slowing down. Now, our brains are so intelligent and so complex that our brains do conflict in nanoseconds. And our brains are doing it so fast, unconsciously, processing all of this emotion and relational stuff, that our conscious brain actually is only catching like about every sixth thing that goes through the head. So this is why conflict escalates so quickly and goes awry really, really fast. So the talking stick, what it does is it slows down the processing in the emotional brain to allow the intellectual brain to catch up. Okay? So if your teenagers, your tweens can't seem to find a resolution and it's gotten really negative, like super heated, okay? Then what you can do is sit them down or maybe they're standing in the hallway outside their bedroom doors, I don't know. Grab a toothbrush, grab whatever's close and say, okay, this is the talking stick. You can each take turns with the talking stick, and here's the ground rules. You can only speak when you have the talking stick. If you don't have the talking stick, you can't speak. And when you have the talking stick, you can only share one thought at a time. So the talking stick is not an opportunity to the entire thing of what happened when it's your turn. Because what happens is the person who's trying to listen, they won't be able to process everything coming at them. They won't be able to keep up with it. So that's unfair. So when you have the talking stick, you only get one thought, feeling thing at a time. And then they do not give this to the other person. They have no contact with each other. This is when it's like super heated, okay? They either give this talking stick back to you, or if you're sitting down, they put it down on the table and let it go, and then the other sibling can pick it up. Now, when the other sibling picks up the talking stick, they can do one of two things. They can either respond to what was just shared, again, within the container of safety, of respect and basic dignity, or they can share a different thought. That's up to them. It's not always about being in the response seat, okay? They can say whatever they want to say. Then they either give it back to you or they set it down, and then the other child can pick it up and now they can talk. These are all tools that I share with you because I know children fight. Of course they do. And I also know as a parent, it literally broke my heart to hear my sons argue and just be mean to each other. It was so heartbreaking to me. And I was a control freak. I still am. I'm a recovering control freak. Someone else wave your hand or send me a like. Tell me I'm not the only one. So I would go in and try and like stop it. I'm also an empath. So being in the presence of two people being really mean to each other, it hurt. So I would go in and try and referee. And I so thought that when I was doing my private investigator stuff, like, you know, about what actually happened and who said what, and then who was right and who was wrong when I delivered my verdict, I thought that was about being the fairest person I could. And I soon realized that that was a way of taking sides. And when there's 8 sides to every story, why are you going to put any energy into taking sides? Because I guarantee then what would happen was one of my kids was always pissed at me. They were always pissed because here's the underlying reason of why. Your brain, the way that your brain processes is probably more like the way one of your children's brain processes, and one of your children probably processes stimulus, their environment, information very differently from you. So from a purely human perspective, and they have proven this in courts of law, this has been proven, you are more likely to always side with the child whose brain and view of the world is most like yours. So do you see how trying to referee is going to constantly be a lose-lose? It will always have you be part of the problem, which is not at all what you're trying to do, and it'll just have your kids be more pissed at you. So the conflict still exists, except now there's 3 people in it instead of 2. The entire intention that I want for you to equip you with these skills is to empower your tweens and teens and their developing brains, which have the capacity for more complex thought processes and decision making and problem solving, is empower them to use those and grow them through effective boundaries of what does respect and dignity look like, through self-advocacy, using communication tools that empower them to say what is true so they can express themselves in tough situations, and to understand conflict resolution skills at least at a basic level, where they know there may never be a resolution where they feel like they win. Like, just let go of that right now. It's not about winning. It's about resolving the conflict. So in relationship work, I'll add this one little bit and then we'll call it a day, is that in relationship work, there is rarely ever a solution that every single person agrees with 100% of the time. It just doesn't happen that way, because we all perceived the issue differently, and therefore our solution, what we want, is all different. So this isn't about winning or losing. It's not about right or wrong. Relationships as a whole, and if you can teach your teenagers this, I'll tell you, they will be wildly successful in their own relationships. Relationships are always about finding and navigating, finding the best solution possible and navigating, like carrying that out. That's all it's about. So I hope today has helped to take you off the hook of feeling like you always have to referee, or your own need to stop what feels extremely painful, to shut it down, because it invalidates feelings and it doesn't equip or empower them to understand conflict resolution. I hope this was helpful for you today. I really hope that you put some comments in here and tell me, what was your biggest takeaway? Tell me, and if you're watching this on the replay, put #replay. I would love to hear from you what your one takeaway was. And also, if you're watching here right now, I hope I'm going to see you on my free webinar tonight, talking about the parenting revolution theory, which is my own parenting chart on how to best and adapt your parenting for the developmental needs of your teenage brain. Why were we never taught this when we were handed our baby at the hospital? I have no idea. So I created my own. And I'm going to talk about some of this sibling rivalry tonight. So if you want a little bit more, the link is in my bio. It's 6:30 tonight. Make sure you join me. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I wish you all a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye. And then I'm going to end this somehow.